A rhetorical analysis of Thomas Paine's common sense. In the gripping debates of the mid-1760s on the topic of American independence versus British loyalty, propaganda and personal agendas plagued the public sentiment and created a state of confusion and ambiguity. The intricacies of the revolutionary argument proved deaf to the ears of the general public, and, according to Goldstein, support for the fight for independence was anything but unanimous. That is, until Thomas Paine's powerful use of rhetoric in his 1776 pamphlet, Common Sense, as indicated by Ferguson, simplified these complex ideas into understandable arguments that appealed to the common man. In a landscape of skepticism towards American independence and disunity in revolutionary ideals, Thomas Paine's Common Sense emerged as a unifying beacon by masterfully employing an array of historical facts, logical reasoning, and evocative evidence to not only argue for American independence, but also challenge the legitimacy of monarchical rule and the rationality behind hereditary succession, thereby bridging individual colonial grievances into a national cry for freedom. The significance of common sense lies in Thomas Paine's eloquent use of various rhetorical strategies that enabled the popularity and widespread dispersion of the pamphlet. He employs the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle's persuasion tactics of ethos, logos, and pathos to appeal to the common American man. Additionally, he poses rhetorical questions and makes appeals to authority that stimulate deeper investigation into the validity of the treatment of the colonies. Paine interweaves these rhetorical elements into a classical model of organization that consists of an introduction to the issue, systematic argumentation, and a conclusion calling for independence. This organizational approach allows for a clear and compelling presentation of Paine's arguments, making complex ideas about independence and government accessible to a broad audience. By systematically breaking his argument into a discreditation of the monarchy and hereditary succession, an explanation of the need for independence, and finally a call for action towards it, Paine effectively builds his case and creates a strong appeal for unification to the 13 colonies. Paine establishes his credibility ethos by stating that the cause of America is, in a great measure, the cause of all mankind. In doing so, he positions himself as being the advocator and protector of not only American interests, but also American values, creating a surge of pride towards the early notions of American exceptionalism. Next, he applies reasoning, logos, to support his discreditation of the monarchy and hereditary succession. Paine describes the origins of government by kings as having been first introduced into the world by heathens, from whom the children of Israel copied the custom. He further describes the institution of rule as being the most prosperous invention the devil ever set foot upon for the promotion of idolatry. By describing the creation of the monarchical government as having come from heathens or atheists to a highly religious mid-18th century crowd as a result of the first Great Awakening of the late 20s, Paine conveys the idea that the monarchy is a man-made, not divine concept and effectively uses religion to discredit the institution and instead garner support for republicanism and democracy. Additionally, Paine uses an argument of fact to address the misconception that competence is genetic, explaining that, though himself might deserve some decent degree of honors of his contemporaries, yet his descendants might be far too unworthy to inherit them. In an attempt to appeal to his audience's emotions, pathos, Paine dramatically contextualizes the global struggle between freedom and oppression. He writes, "Every spot of the old world is ridden with oppression. Freedom hath been hunted round the globe." At which point, He lists regions of the world and how each one has rejected freedom. In doing so, he paints the rest of the world as having succumbed to oppression, and urges the colonies as a unified nation to open their warm embrace to the ideals of freedom that others have deemed a stranger. In order to support his views on the harmful effects of a monarchy, Paine begins by questioning the very concept of the institution and its implications on mankind. He asks, how a race of men came into the world so exalted above the rest and distinguished, like some new species. Upon posing this thought-provoking question, Paine makes appeals to authority, focused on religious and historical context, to challenge the validity of the monarchy. He writes that, according to the scripture chronology, there were no kings, the consequence of which was, there were no wars. It is the pride of kings which throws mankind into confusion. He then evidences Holland, stating that without a king, it has enjoyed more peace for this last century than any of the monarchical governments in Europe. By citing prominent religious scriptures, highlighting the fact that the monarchy ceases to be referenced in them, and displaying a historical example that depicts the efficiency of adherence to that scripture, Paine portrays the idea that rule under a British monarchy is a hindrance to the realization of the American potential under an independent government guided by Republican ideals. Thomas Paine's Common Sense was not only a pivotal document calling for revolutionary action in the struggle for American independence, but also a blueprint on the art of rhetoric. Through his use of ethos, Paine portrays himself as an advocate of universal values and presents himself as a protector of fundamental American ideals. His application of logos, in alignment with the religious climate of the time following the influence of the First Great Awakening on the revival of belief, allows him to intelligently discredit the monarchical government and hereditary succession, thereby garnering a need for freedom from such a restraining and oppressive institution. Moreover, Paine's evocative use of pathos paints a struggle between global oppression and the potential for freedom, rallying colonies to unify and fight for this cause. The classical organization of these arguments further enables the effectiveness of his rhetoric, in effect, producing a resonant call for action against British injustice and for American freedom. Thank you.